Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 67 of Percussion Discussion. As always, I'll ask, please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel. If you prefer to listen on the go, all of our conversations are available in podcast form. You can find those on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. You can download those and listen wherever you want to listen to them. On to today's guest. I'm really thrilled to have this gentleman with me. I've been a huge admirer of his drumming since, I think very early 80s anyway. Since 1984, he has been the drummer with Marillion. It gives me huge pleasure to welcome the fabulous Mr. Ian Mosley. Yeah, Ian, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it, mate.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's great to see you. How's things been for you?
Yeah, well, very good, all things considered. We've what's sort of kept me sane over the last couple of years has been being in a band, to be honest. And I've been going to the studio most days and seeing the band, and that's sort of kept us all sane, I think. Just being able to see the boys, talk a bit of rubbish. Have a bit of humour going on and cracking on.
That's the best. I think that's the best. There's a lot to be said. It's like a second family, isn't it? A band. Let's be honest. And as much as you can be sick of each other, but it's also great to see each other again.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, really, the band's been the most consistent thing for the last 30, 40 years for me. It's the band's seen off a couple of marriages here and there and whatnot, but the band's always been a consistent. So touch wood, bless them.
Well, look, as I say, it's great to have you on here. Your name's been sort of batted around for some time, but the timing hasn't been quite right. And I saw a mutual friend of ours a few weeks ago, Mr. Bill Sanders of the Bill Sanders practice pads, and he said, "You know what? I think I can get Ian Mosley for you." Excuse me. And I said, that would be fantastic. So, yeah, thank you very much for that, Bill. It's very kind of you. So I believe you and he go way back. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we go back a long way. I think Bill came round to, when I was living at my parents still, he came round one day and said, I think I'm going to build some practice pads. I said, oh, great, Bill. And then he turned up with some, and I thought they were really good. So he actually gave me a set, and he hasn't really looked back, I don't think, since then. I mean, he's manufacturing them for the last 30, 40 years now, yeah. And I think they're really good. He never paid me anything didn't pay me anything. He used to take me out for a curry once a year, but he's a good guy, and no, good luck to him.
Well, in fact, here we go. Look, there it is, right in front of me.
Well, I've still got one over here. Yeah, I've got a snare drum here that I practice on, and that's got one of Bill's pads on it.
Oh, there we go. So, Bill, I'll let you send the check to Ian when you see this, and then you can sort of...
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah, so thank you, Bill. It's very kind of you. So, look, let's go back, if you don't mind. Let's go back to where sort of music and drums caught fire for you a few years ago.
That certainly was. Well, oh, gosh. Well, I suppose I was told that someone gave me a drum when I was about 3 years old, and I drove my parents mad with it. But to be honest, you give any 3-year-old a drum, they're going to drive everyone mad with it, aren't they? So, but my father was a professional violinist, classical, and he used to be quite a fixer for lots of shows and for film sessions. And so when I was a kid, I used to go along to a lot of big film sessions and help my dad sort of hand out the music to the orchestras. And one day I went to, he did a show called Funny Girl with Barbara Streisand. It was her debut in the West End. I think it was Her Majesty's Theatre in London. And I just remember I sat next to the percussionist, and Barbara Streisand was incredible, when she came out on stage. But I was just sat there, and I was just totally fascinated with what the drummer and percussionists were doing. And I think that's what gave me the initial excitement. I mean, my father put a violin in my hands when I was, I don't know how old I was, probably 5 or 6 years old, but I kind of rebelled.
Yeah.
But my father guided me, he helped me. He was always very supportive, although we were worlds apart because he was totally classical, but he always got me good teachers. And I started proper lessons, serious lessons when I was about 12. And he got me lessons with a guy called Gilbert Webster, who was a top percussionist at the Guildhall School of Music. And I just learned a lot, but I actually really wanted to be in a rock band. All along on the way, I used to play on biscuit tins to the Beatles and the Who, the Kinks, and that was my kind of stomping ground. Then I remember Led Zeppelin as well, John Bonham. That first Zeppelin album just sort of blew me away. But when I was at school, I joined we had an orchestra, a jazz orchestra. And when I was about 13, I joined them. And very fortunate that there was a teacher there that quite a visionary, really. He used to get loads of American big band parts sent over from the States. So the jazz orchestra was playing kind of Duke Ellington stuff. And so that was my roots, playing in the sort of big bands. And he was great. He always made sure that the kids had good instruments to play on as well. I think he was always having a constant battle with the authorities trying to get money for the kids. But that was great. So I did that from about the age of 13 or 14. And one day he came up to me in the playground and he said, "Ian, just let everything revolve around your music. Don't worry about anything else." And I thought that suits me fine. And I used to practice in the school hall at lunchtimes, and after school, he played the tenor sax and baritone sax, and also he was a great piano player. But he used to stay after school with me for a few hours, and we used to just jam, just piano and drums. So that's how it kind of started, I suppose.
He obviously saw something in you. He wouldn't have said that had you been, not of a good standard or not showing promise. Because that, you could shatter somebody's dreams, couldn't you, saying that when they're hopeless? He obviously saw something in you straight away, didn't he, I guess?
Well, I think so. I suppose, like anyone that's in love with their instrument, I didn't need any encouragement to sort of go to practice and to play. No one had to tell me to do stuff. I just wanted to do it. And he really encouraged me a lot. And he was always very supportive. And he left in the end. He left because, as I said, he was always having battles with the local authorities, Hillingdon County Council, I think. And he ended up moving to Canada and starting a music college there in Victoria Island in Canada. And I think he was very successful there. But yeah, he was a bit of a visionary, and he definitely put me on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you go down the college route or anything like that, or did you?
Well, I left when I left school. I went to the Guildhall School of Music.
Okay.
For about a year, and at the same time, I was working in a drum shop called Drum City in Shaftesbury Avenue.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was fantastic because just about every one of my heroes came into that shop, and every one of them that came in, I'd ask them, "Show me something," and I think we spoke about it earlier that I think just about every one of my heroes that I met were really nice to me. and really encouraging and gave me time. I mean, as I said, at Drum City, so many people came into that shop, heroes. And I used to go out and do work go out to repair drum kits. And I went to Ronnie Scott's once to fix Buddy Rich's kit.
Wow.
And there was something wrong with the tom hold or something. And I remember sitting behind the kit and going, right, what's the secret? How does he do it? You know, and it was just a normal drum kit. It really pissed me off. It was just
was he there when you were repairing it?
No, I was just there in the afternoon. And but I did meet him once. And when I was a cheeky kid, really, I used to just my mother worked for the BBC and she used to get lots of tickets for shows. And there was a show at which is now the Shepherd's Bush Empire. It used to be the BBC studios. And I went to some rehearsals there and it was the Buddy Rich Orchestra. And after they'd finished rehearsing, I got backstage and I knocked on Buddy Rich's dressing room door. And he said, yeah. And I opened the door and I said, you know, what do you say to Buddy Rich? You know, I like your drumming. He'd just say, yeah, I know. But he invited me in and asked me, you know, and I said, just have you got any tips or anything? And he was just really nice to me. And he had such a reputation as, so that was great. As I said, nearly everyone I met, I'd always say, show me something, you know, what am I doing wrong? Or Phil Seaman, you know, that drummer.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, well, he used to come into the shop a lot. And I'd always say to Phil, show me stuff. And he'd say, all right, play me something. So we'd be on a pad, you know, I'd just be playing something. And he was just staring at me and suddenly he just went whack like that and knocked the sticks out of my hands. And I said, why'd you do that, Phil? And he said, well, that's no good, is it? Hang on to them. Hold on to your sticks. I said, all right.
Proving a point.
And then another thing that happened while I was at Drum City, we used to just practice in there all day, really. We didn't sell much stuff. But there was a drummer called Peter Wolf who was playing in a show called Hair. And he came in the shop one day and said, Ian, would you like to do the show? You know, I'm a 17-year-old kid. And I said, you're joking, aren't you? He said, no, I really would like you to do it. So I went to, the idea with that show is you sit there and watch the show for 1 or 2 nights sitting next to the drummer. And there were no real charts written out for it.
Really?
Not really, no. Everything was kind of stop, you know, play for 8 bars. And so I sat next to him for the first night. And I just remember sitting there and suddenly about 10 naked women appeared on stage. And, whoa. And after the show, he said, Ian, would you like to do it? I said, yeah, I'd love to do it.
How much will I pay you?
And then on the way home, I'm thinking, what have I said? What have I done? You know, this is ridiculous. But I think Peter had been doing that show for 7 or 8 years. And he was just knackered. I think he would have, you know, given it to anyone. But anyway, I sat by him for 2 or 3 nights. And then I went through some of the parts with the guitarist in the show was Alex Harvey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, very different to his later image. But I mean, you know, he had a tweed jacket on with the leather elbow patches. And he really helped me go through some of the parts. And I remember doing it, the first night I did it, I was just about to come in and Peter was sitting next to me for the first night and a hand came up and went, not yet. You know, I went, whoa. Oh. And it was over in a flash and it actually sort of went okay. So, and I remember something that Simon Phillips said in one of your interviews was that the first night of a show like that, goes by in a flash and your adrenaline and you're concentrating, you're so focused. And it went well. And it's the second night, which is the dangerous night, because you kind of, well, I've done it once. And
complacency.
Yeah, the second night is the dangerous night for anything. So, but I did it for about 7 weeks. And after about a week, I thought, yeah, this is great. And after 2 weeks, it was like, yeah, this is still really good. And after 3 weeks, I thought, especially when you have 2 shows on a Friday and 2 shows on a Saturday, I just thought, I think I've had enough of this now. I really want to be in a band. That was what I really wanted. So after 7 weeks, I was knackered and playing the same thing every single night. But it was a great experience. And the MD of that show was a guy called Frank Ricotti. He was a great percussionist. Multi-instrumentalist. But he was brilliant and he was really nice. Everyone was really nice to me. The brass section played some horrible tricks on me. I mean, I went to start one night and they put one of the brass players, a guy called Bud Parks, put a broom handle underneath my pedals. So I went to start and there was nothing, And then Frank Ricotti used to come up behind me in the middle of a track and start banging a tambourine or something completely out of time with what I was playing. But it helped me later in life trying to play to click tracks when the things around weren't in the same time signature.
Sure. But you know what? Hair is a fantastic show musically as well. There's some great stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, really, really good. Yeah.
Oh, amazing stuff. So once you got out of the West End, I suppose, did you have something lined up when you left, or were you?
No, I mean, I'd do anything, to be honest. Whatever came along. But as I said, what I really wanted to do was to be in a band. And then I got a call from a guy called Darryl Way, who was a violinist. He was in a band called Curved Air.
Oh, yeah.
And he left and formed a band called Wolf. And he asked me to join. So that was my first professional band, proper band. They were signed to Decca, I think, or DRAM. And I did about 3 albums with that band. Great guitarist, guy called John Etheridge, who...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the band, really lovely bloke. I still speak to him occasionally. He was in the band. And we toured Europe, did 3 albums, and then it all went horribly wrong, really. And I think the band just split up in the end. And I thought it was the end of my world. But yeah, it was a great experience. It really was.
It's a different time then, wasn't it? I mean, I wouldn't like to be a young drummer coming up today, because you think of the gigs that were available. I don't mean necessarily gigs with bands, but there were a lot of gigs you could do. Whereas these days, it's quite few and far between, isn't it? I think 60s and 70s was the prime time for gigging, as far as I can see anyway. But I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't know where to start now anyway. I mean, I used to always make sure, to try and be in the right time in the right place and the right time, and put myself about a lot and go to parties, just hoping to find a gig, I suppose. Lots and lots of networking. And you're right, there were lots of clubs in London where you could play, and all around England actually. And I did notice it a few years back. We were recording with Marillion. We were recording in Liverpool at Parr Street Studios. And I went out one night, and in every other bar there was a band playing, and it was really vibey and some really good bands playing. And I thought, this is putting London to shame, because there was nothing happening in London really, apart from the established clubs. So yeah, you're right. It probably is, as I said, I wouldn't know where to start now. Freelancing.
No, no, you know, I know there's people who do it and people who do well, but and I don't know. There seems to be more drummers around these days, which is a good thing, of course. Hopefully, all watching this, but there does seem to be a lot more drummers around than there used to be. Which, you know, I don't know why that is. Internet, who knows? But
there's some great players around, isn't there? I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm probably like anyone else. I go onto YouTube for 10 minutes and end up spending a few hours on there. But I'm quite jealous that, not jealous, that's the right, but, you know, when I was 17 or 18, there was no YouTube or any of that stuff going on. If you wanted to learn people's licks, you listened to albums.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to try and find out what they were doing, you either went to see them or you tried slowing them down on the record player, didn't you? And
get a job in Drum City and ask them when they come in.
Yeah, I really did. I asked everybody that came in to show me something, and there was only one person that gave me a really hard time, and I'm not going to say who it was because he was an amazing player, but but everyone was really nice, apart from that one guy.
Well, you're always going to get one, aren't you? I mean, I'm lucky. And I think we mentioned this before. I've spoken to close on 70 drummers now, and everyone has been incredibly nice, and I mean that genuinely as well. You know, which is good. And then
that is good. I mean, I only want to work with people that I like really, and that are fun. You know, that's at the end of it. That's what music should be about. It should be about having some fun.
So I want to jump forward a little bit to your time with Steve Hackett. How did that gig come about, Ian?
I was based at a studio in Queensway called Redan Studios. I used to do a lot of work out of that studio. And before Hackett came along, I was with the Gordon Giltrap band, the guitarist. I've worked with some great guitarists, you know, I'm really lucky actually, but yeah, Gordon was great. And so I was based there, and Steve Hackett was in doing some recording. And I just kind of started chatting to him really. And at the time, he was doing an album and using drum machines for everything. I think it was called Cured, the album. And I was walking past him one day and he said, "Ian, are you any good at walking?" I said, "Yeah, I can walk." He said, "I want some footsteps down a stairwell with some ambience on it. Can you do that?" I said, "I'll give it a go." So I did that for him. And then he said, "Do you fancy having a jam, you know, in the studio?" So I had a jam with him and got on great. And then the next thing I knew, he asked me if I'd like to do the tour, which was my first time I went to America, actually, touring. So it's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, Steve Hackett is a phenomenal guitarist. I mean, you know, everyone knows that, but he's also a really nice guy. And yeah, so going to America for the first time, I just remember coming into New York and seeing that skyline for the first time and going, "It's real, you know, I've made it. This is amazing." The only time I've seen that skyline was in King Kong films. And and you know, in my youth, I always looked to America. Most of my heroes were from America. So that was another dream come true, really. But yeah, it was a great experience touring with Steve.
And because I was listening to Highly Strung, which was that the first album you did with Steve?
I think it might have been one of the first, yeah.
And the opening track, Camino Royale, there's some beautiful playing from you on there. Those the really, well, I hope the double strokes on the hi-hat. There's like a double stroke roll, really beautiful playing on there. You can't remember, can you?
No, I can't. I remember it was the first time. I mean, Steve had lots of influences at the time. Lots of his influences were from Brazil. And, you know, Brazilian drums, Brazilian drumming. So, and we were always experimenting in the studio with sort of Brazilian rhythms and whatnot. And that's the first time. It was before any monitors or any of that stuff. And I remember playing live with him for one of the tours, Camino Royal. I don't know if that one's got Brazilian drums in it anywhere, but we had them coming through my monitors. So rather than no click tracks or anything, but real, drums coming through my monitors at a deafening level, so I could play along with them. So that was my first attempt at playing along to any kind of loop, if you like. But Steve was great. I mean, he used to record nearly every show just on cassette and listen to it and check it out and and tell me what he thought. And it's a habit I kind of grew into as well, that I got off him. When I joined Marillion, I used to record every single show and listen to them back and go, that was a bit fast, or that was a bit slow, or that's not quite right. So, yeah.
Have you always been quite sort of self-critical or self-analytical, whichever way you want to look at it?
Yeah, I've always been that way, I suppose. I've always wanted to be able to just, compliment. As a drummer, I'd like to compliment whoever I'm accompanying. I don't want things to sound out of place, really. And I think it's good to, as a band, that the whole band is really listening to each other. It's so important that everyone can hear each other. With bands, a lot of the time, especially when you've got in-ear monitors and you concentrate on your own parts, you're not really listening. Some of the time, you're not listening to the other guys in the band, and you should always be able to and have the visual contact as well. Rather than screens up between or you don't want to be segregated on stage. So yeah, I've always. I think anyone really would want to try just do their best.
I've sometimes been afraid to hear recordings that I've played on. It's like, oh no, I don't think I'd rather just be oblivious to it all sometimes.
Oh, me too. Don't worry about it. Yeah, no, there's some stuff where I listen back, I thought, I don't ever want to hear that again.
So, obviously, when the Marillion audition came around, if you like, were you aware of Marillion at this point? Because they're sort of not in their infancy, but they'd not been around too long at this point, had they?
No, it was the first time I started to hear about Marillion was towards the end of my days with Steve Hackett. After shows, we used to do signing sessions, and at one signing session, I remember signing some stuff, and a few people said, "What do you think of Marillion?" And of course, I had my sort of session head on. And when you have your session head on, you always say everything's great, don't you? Yeah, I mean, and I said, "Oh, Marillion, yeah, really good." I'd never heard of them. So, and then I went home after the Hackett tour had finished, and I opened. It was either a Melody Maker or a Sound something, and it said Marillion need drummer. I thought, what is going on here? And so I thought, well, I must know someone in the Marillion camp. And as it happened, I did. A guy called Paul Crockford, who looked after Steve Hackett at Outlaw Promotions. He was friends with John Arneson, who was Marillion's manager. And he wrote John Arneson a letter introducing me to him and saying what a nice bloke I was. And and then I got a call from the Marillion office because they'd been through a bit of a sort of Spinal Tap situation, I think, for us drummers. They'd had about 5 drummers, and they hadn't worked out. So they was up in Rockfield Studios.
Yes, Monmouth, yeah.
Yeah, working on their second album, the Fugazi album. And they called me and said, would I go along? And I said, I can't. I was in the middle of doing a clinic tour for Zildjian. And I said, in a couple of weeks. And they said, all right. And that was it. I didn't hear anything. Then about 3 weeks went by, and I rang their office and said, what's happening now? We found somebody. I said, all right. So I thought that was the end of it. And then about a week after that, I got another call. It didn't work out. I said, all right. So I went up to what was very strange as well is that, as I say, I live in Tring, and at the time I lived in that village 3 miles down the road. And Steve Rothery, the guitarist, and Pete, the bass player, they all lived in Aylesbury. So they were just up the road from me. So I thought, this is very odd. So I picked both of them up and took them to Monmouth. And that's when I first met them. And they looked, I was 29. They were in their early 20s. And they looked about 12. But we went to Monmouth, we started jamming, and I sort of helped them out as a session musician for the Fugazi album. And we just clicked straight away. And then after it was recorded, we did some gigs. And that's when I really knew, sitting behind the kit, the first couple of gigs, I thought, it's a dream come true. This is a real band. There's something really special about this. So that was my first jump into the Marillion camp.
Do you know, I mean, I guess the Steve Hackett stuff that you'd done for the previous 3 or 4 years must have set you up nicely for the kind of musical style of Marillion. It's not the same, but it's kind of got nuances of it, hasn't it, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, it certainly. I mean, really, at the time, drumming for Steve Hackett, a drummer's dream, really.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I mean, although a lot of things were in odd time signatures, it didn't really matter because 9 times out of 10, there was usually a fantastic melody to play to.
Yes.
And that's what I'm kind of into. I'd rather be playing to a melody rather than trying to count all the time. And that was what's wonderful about Steve's music. So yeah, it kind of did set me up for when I came along to the Marillion stuff. A lot of the music really felt second nature to me.
Well, do you know? I mean, and the drummer features quite heavily on the Fugazi album. I mean, the intro into Emerald Lies, for example. It's a tasty little intro, that, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that came about, but me and Pete used to jam a lot. I mean, we still do, actually. Still, you know, out of all the members of the band, me and Pete I could bring up Pete now and say, "Do you fancy a jam?" And yeah, you know, and that's how it was in the early days as well. So that probably came about from just having a jam.
It's a great intro, and it's one I hear it and I go, no, I don't quite know what's happening after that as well. So it's one I'll get it one of these days. One of these days.
Was it? Something like that.
Fantastic. I mean, I'll be honest. The first time I was majorly aware of Marillion was Misplaced Childhood, and I teach quite a lot of drum students, and I always, whenever I hear you're playing, it's crisp and precise and always tasteful. Now, when I'm teaching beginners how to do open and closed hi-hats properly, I always refer back to Kaylee, and I said, if you can make the hi-hat sound like this, that you're doing it right, because that is my reference point for open and closed hi-hats. I remember the first time I heard that, and I was like, this is just fabulous stuff.
No, thank you, Matty.
You know, that I just love that. I mean, it's a great song, but I love the drumming on that. You know, the bass drum work. It's just, tell us about that. The recording of that, did that just fall into place? That the drum track there, or was there a lot of thought gone into that?
Well, most of Marillion's music is written, in fact, all of it really is written just by jamming. And I think Steve Rothery came up with that riff for Kaylee. So I would have just sat down and just played spontaneously to it without any thought. I would have just played to it. And so that's how it started. And then from then it would have been a matter of Fish would have come in, singer at the time, and added some lyrics to it, So it really was quite effortless. It really was spontaneous.
Work, but you've always had that really beautiful, crisp, bright sounding cymbals, which it's almost, if you asked me, it was almost a trademark for you. You might disagree totally, but whenever I hear it, I say, yeah, Ian Mosley, that's, you know, but that track in particular, at the time, I remember I'd have been, what would that have been, 1985, 86, something like that?
Yeah, 85, yeah.
So I'd have been 12, and I remember hearing it. It's like, wow, listen to that, and it's still listen to it to this day. But now then,
well, they're nice cymbals. I've still got the same cymbals, to be honest.
Yeah, really, you've not changed them as such.
No, I mean the only cymbals I've still got my ride. It's the same ride cymbal, same hi hats. The only cymbals that have changed over the years are probably the crashes, because they take a terrible hammering, as you know, and I used to split them, and it was user error. They were too thin, so I went up to, rather than thin crash, medium thins. Yes. But it's very rare that I still have probably the same cymbals. You know, that if I got those, if they were stolen, I'd be heartbroken.
They're, I mean, see, you're of the school of, if it's not broke, don't fix it, which is good.
Yeah, I am actually. Yeah. So I mean, someone asked me a few weeks ago, Ian, why have you never changed your kit, your setup? It's always been the same. But I like it like that. You know.
Why should you? Yeah. Now, there's one thing I want to ask you. Talking about kit, I'm going to talk about the kit in a minute. Excuse me. Your bass drum pedals. Are you still using the Premier 250s?
Oh, I wish they still made them.
Oh. I think you don't use them anymore then.
No, and to be honest, I mean, I've used all sorts of pedals, especially since the double bass drum pedal thing came in. But before that, when I was using two bass drums, I had the Premier 250S pedals, and I just loved them. You know, I really did. And when I actually got to use the double pedal, I still found it quite difficult to. I was always aware that my foot was on something different to a Premier 250S, and I've still got those pedals, but I don't use them anymore. But yeah, I used to love them. It was like a comfortable slipper. You know, you're never aware of what my feet were doing, because the pedal was just felt totally natural. I can't believe you knew about that.
Oh, I know lots of things.
Cozy Powell used to use 250S's Premiers, and apparently he bought the last lot. You know, when I don't know what happened to Premier at the time, but he bought all of the 250S pedals, I think.
Yeah, they were nice. I've actually got one in my lockup, actually. So yeah, great bits of kit. And now, speaking of drums itself, you've recently moved over to British Drum Company.
Yes, yeah, I'm quite excited about it. It's going to be the maiden voyage. We're going out on tour in a couple of weeks' time, and that'll be the first time I've used them in anger.
I know you've been doing some rehearsal the last few weeks. Have they been sounding as you'd hoped?
Yeah, they're really good. But I'm still, at the moment, I've got the British Drum Company kit set up in a different room.
Yeah.
And we've had, I've got an internal miking system in it for live. So that's been sorted out. And I've been tuning them up and playing them a bit. And they sound really good. But in actual rehearsals, which we rehearse at our studio, I'm still playing my Tama kit.
Okay.
But so the first gig will be on the 14th of November in Hull. That would be the first proper outing for the British Drum Company kit. I'm looking forward to it. It sounds lovely, and I just really, I went up to Stockport to the factory and met everyone there, and I was just blown away by their kind of work ethic and master craftsmen. and just loved going into what they were doing, and nice people, and fantastic.
It's no secret on here that I'm a massive fan of British Drum Company. I know Keith and Mel and Stu quite well.
Okay.
I mean, the attention to detail, both externally and internally on the drums, is just, they're just things of beauty, aren't they? They really are.
No, they are. They are. So the care and attention that goes into them. I mean, I went, as I said, Mel showed me around the factory, and I just watched them building stuff. I even had to go up putting one ply in one of the drums myself. They just pop it in place. But it's just lovely to see people, so skilled, and loving what they're doing. So, as I said, nice people. And it seems they're getting a really good reputation for themselves over the last year or two. It's a shame that the pandemic sort of scuppered everybody, didn't it, including them? Because the reason I'm still rehearsing on my Tama kit is because I was meant to have a studio kit as well, but they couldn't. They had to close down manufacturing for quite a few months.
No, it's going to be. It's. I mean, obviously you've played on some great drums on some big stages. Is it still exciting when it's new drum day and you get to try them out with the PA and everything and see how it looks?
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, I mean, it is weird this late in my career to actually open a cardboard box and get something new out and go, whoa! And it takes me straight back to when I was a kid. I did it, a year or two back. I got a new a Ludwig Black Beauty snare drum, and it was just like getting out of the box. Oh, it's a lovely feeling. And so when the new kit arrived, it's what's the finish? Raven glass, it's called. It's like a black holographic sparkle. When the kit arrived at the studio, it was very exciting. Yeah, it took me straight back to my childhood.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of footage and pictures and what have you, on its maiden voyage. So I'll look forward to seeing those and hearing it.
Yeah, we're going to start doing, taking some serious photographs of the kit and whatnot on this tour, I should think. Although this tour is going to be odd because no one's allowed backstage.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I mean, the first gigs are going to be quite emotional, I think. But the band has to be traveling a bubble. We've got our own tour bus. We used to share the bus with the crew, but now we've got to have separate buses. No one allowed backstage. So I don't know, it's going to be a bit odd. But the band is going to have to talk to each other for the whole tour.
But, I think it's a small price to pay to be out and doing what you do, isn't it? There's always going to be restrictions. And I think it's mainly about keeping the band safe and able to tour. I mean, we've all seen what's happened with the Genesis camp. They've had to, shift some shows and what have you. And it's an expensive business when you have to start doing that, isn't it? And it's as well as being a total pain. So, you've got to keep you safe, haven't we?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's, the bands that, like you say, Genesis, their tour got scuppered, didn't it? And I think most of the bands, I mean, Steve Hackett's just done a 6-week tour of England.
Yes.
Of the UK. And, touch wood, none of them got COVID. Otherwise, the whole thing would have been cancelled. Yeah. And so we're crossing our fingers. I mean, we're testing it. The band does COVID tests 3 times a week. And when we're on tour, it'll be every day, I should think.
Something to look forward to.
I know, we can't. The other terrible thing is that no bands can get any insurance, which is dreadful. I mean, we've if one person gets COVID, the whole thing's blown up.
Just when you need insurance more than ever.
Yeah, you can't get any. So, and we've come up with, Lucy, our manager, came up with a plan, and I mean, our fans are just amazing, but they've kind of underwritten the tour in a way. We decided that for us to tour, the first thing we have to do, we've got to pay for lights, buses, PA, crew. And so the initial expense layout was probably about £150,000. Right. Now, if one gig in and that gets cancelled, then we're out of pocket 150 grand and we won't see any gig money. So it's kind of a disaster, So Lucy's put it out to our fans, would you like to be our insurance company? And we had people from about 36 countries around the world pledging money to us, although we're not touring. Like, we have American fans donating money. And the idea is it's stuck in an account, about 140 grand we've got so far. It's just going to stay in the account. Hopefully, we don't have to use it. And at the end of the tour, we just give it all back to them.
Wow.
So, I mean, but our fans are just something else.
You do have the most loyal fans in ever. I mean, I know you've crowdfunded albums in the past, I don't know if that's the correct way of putting it, but something similar to that. And I don't know of anybody else quite like it who has fans so loyal.
No, I mean, they're unbelievable. I mean, they just put their trust in us to actually, it happened, I don't know when the first 97, I think it was, that we wanted to do an American tour and the record company wouldn't support us. So we said to our American fans, I'm sorry, but we can't come. We can't afford to lose 50 or 60,000 pounds. And someone got a tour fund together, and within 2 weeks they'd raised that money. So we went to America and toured, and that's how the whole thing started with Marillion. We thought, I wonder if they'd fund an album. And so I suppose we were one of the first, we were the first to do that. And it just gave us the freedom to, we own our own music.
Yeah, doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, for fans around the world to trust us that we're not going to just go and have a big party and buy Ferraris. I mean, thank you very much.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Can't fault that at all. It's just incredible. But you obviously give it back to them in other ways, and everyone's happy. What more can you say? You can't really.
Well, we never take any of it for granted. We never do, and we're in constant contact with all of our fan base. So, yeah, that's the I suppose what you were saying. It must be really difficult these days trying to get gigs and anyone in this business, if anyone's earning a living in this business in the arts, good luck to them, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's been tough, and it's but there you go, we're through the other side, and hopefully things will pick up and keep on the up. All the very best with your tour. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. And
thanks, Maddie.
Thank you very much for giving up your time. I really do appreciate it. So
you're welcome.
Hopefully we can catch up at some point and talk more drums.
Yeah. All right, Matthew. Nice one.
Thank you, Ian. Take care, mate. See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.